demonstrate the, like I said, this is a learning process, and the great thing about it is that this emulsion goes a long way, and that the trial and error thing as far as like the cleaning of the screen again, the really great mixers, you can do this constantly off and on. If you feel that you're frustrated or you're not sure that you want to keep, after you're done coating it and you look at it and you're like, hey, you know what, that's the time to go ahead and just do it up. Like first with the water, because it's still wet, so water will take that off, and again, something jet powered really helps. And then if there's something that didn't wash out vaguely, you go to do this and you spray it on there and let that come off on its own. So if you're not happy with the first actual coat that you're doing on there, so be it. So this stuff looks kind of like a turquoise green. You really can't see it in there, but it's actually blue when you first open it up. And like I mentioned with that little powder jar, if you add the water, you add it in there and it turns like a turquoise green kind of color. Something that we talked about the first one is like it's also learning to get your your precise skills going on, how consistent you are when you're working on things, especially the actual process of screening a shirt. We talked about like keeping the actual pressure and the actual squeegee in the same motion until you're done. In other words, when you're squeegeeing, you don't want to do this, because then the paint balance, you lose the paint balance and it's thicker in the beginning and it becomes more soft. And again, I didn't talk about this the last time, but I will talk about it again when we do actually do a demonstration of the actual screening, is that that's another way that you can actually do it is actually before you do it, what I usually do is I put a strip of paint here, and then I go with the squeegee, and I kind of just squeegee over that way, or in this case this way. But also another way to do it is with a spatula. If you kind of want to just cake the paint on the areas where you are going to screen. In other words, if I just cake a little bit, no pressure, just like you're putting frosting, you can't press down because the cake crumbles, it's so soft still. Like you're just kind of pasting it on top, or like dabbing it on top, and then you just go with your squeegee and just go over that paint, push it through. So you're kind of doing you're doing half the step by doing that. Yeah, some of the step before doing that, and then pushing the screen through. And I didn't cover that because some people kind of get a little nervous when they actually put the paint on there, and they kind of just freak out a little bit. So and yeah, this is trial and error. I just learned this. Again, I'm not going to use the amazing thing because not everybody can probably afford to go out and buy one right away, and they are kind of pricey if you're not going to invest in something like that. So I'm just going to use this in the exact same way and just bring that up. Really, the importance of using a small screen and a larger screen is that, and even there at Hercs when they do your screens, it's impossible to actually put emulsion even Steven on a screen without there not being a border, because your squeegee will never get, maybe on one side, but at the top you're never going to get it come clear, and on the sides as well, because there's no squeegee that's perfect enough to do that. So what you do is you want to put some emulsion after you've painted it, and I'll show you how to do that. But I just want you to know that it's going to be a trial and error type of thing, and don't feel like that, like I said, on the first or second try that you're actually, and that's good if you feel comfortable after the first time, but at the second try you should, it should get easier after the second time for sure. And this stuff, nothing's wrong with it until you actually put it on the screen and expose it to the sun. So, like I said, if you can find a workspace at home, like a closet or a bedroom or some bathroom. So all I'm doing is I'm going to put it right at the bottom, and I'm going to angle it a little bit so that my paint starts running down. And this is like the squeegee part that we talked about earlier when we were doing the silk screening. It's the same thing. You want to apply the same amount of pressure, not a lot, just kind of, you want to make sure that you're leaving some emulsion behind as such. That side. There looks like there's still plenty on there, so I'm going to try again with that. And angle it so that the actual emulsion it starts dripping down. And again, I'm not putting any pressure. I'm just lifting lightly the actual emulsion there. And so this is a good time when you have a spatula or anything, where you guys can see there's drips and thicker borders going along. That's when you can use a spatula, or something that guy recommended. I'm sure you guys have seen it. We talked about it the last time. There's those art tools that have a little square sponge and they get thinner at the tip. They're all just a little square sponge and it has a handle like this. Those are really, really good too, because the pores on that are so small, not like the thicker old school brushes with the bigger pores, where it doesn't soak it in. And this is where, again, all you're doing is you're lightly, like I said, it's like kind of like frosting a cake. Hold it straight up. And all that stuff here that's dripping, I'm gonna kind of just blend it together. Until there isn't a big layer there. And if it's too much, if it's not coming undone, again, that's the best part of pretend you're frosting a cake, is all the man kept telling me today. I was like, okay, I can see that. So I'm going to use that over and over. Pretend you're frosting a cake, where you, like I said, where you can even out where there's too much frosting. Again, I'm not too concerned at the edges, because when you're doing a large screen like that, like this would be good because I know my inside will be perfect. So my image that is in that image, but like I usually work with a larger screen, so I don't have to worry about getting an even coat on the edges. It's only where my actual image is going to be burned, which is right in the middle, that I'm actually really concerned about having a smooth and even consistency. That looks pretty good to me. Looks pretty even coated, wet. Evenly, maybe right here a little bit, but I said I'm not too worried about this part here. It's that easy to just smooth it out. And you guys got to remember that when you're doing this, if I'm cleaning this side, I'm pushing it through to the other side. So I'm gonna definitely have to flip that around. Wherever I just laid a little pressure, like right here, to butter it up. There. See how it kind of went up this way a little bit? Not too much, but you just keep going back and forth. Again, as long as you're in no sunlight, there's no rush in doing what we're doing right now. There's no like, hurry, hurry, you gotta do this, you gotta do this. If you wanna be neat and clean about it, so that again, when you put it down somewhere to expose it, and I bought a piece of poster board, black poster board, so that when we put that on top, there's no actual reflection on the bottom of your screen, so that it gets an even coating. And I think that looks pretty good as far as the actual coating of the screen goes. And I'm still bothered a little bit. I'm not that's me being me, but this part here, because unnecessary emulsion.
Couldn't you use the smaller squeegee that you have? Perhaps that one might fit.
You know, and I asked them about that, but the only thing about that squeegee again is that
it's not a very coarse.
Yeah, if it was stiffer, for sure. That's why he went back to this. He was like, I wouldn't even have that other one, and I use that with art projects for kids that I work with kids and do art projects. So I use the other one for that. But he says, don't even put it as part of your. You're talking about that other one, right?
Yeah, this one.
Yeah. Like I said, yeah, it's super flexible. And one thing back to that is because these get old and wet and they get brittle and chip, and they chip where you don't even actually see it, but when you're doing that coating, it might leave like little lines, and that's also one of the reasons. After washing this kind of rubber a few times with soap, it just starts getting dry and it cracks. So what you do is you put this, and again, in your tub or in a closet or somewhere for, I'm going to say over an hour, just to be on the safe side. And as you guys can see, we brought that other screen out where you guys still saw some, it's almost all dry, but you guys saw some wet earlier. There's some at the bottom, you guys can still see that down here on the left corner. It's still a little wet. So we did this about 2 hours ago, 2.5 hours ago. But again, my place is just super humid and don't have the best air system in my apartment. So, but I think it's ready, and I think we're gonna give it a shot at trying to burn this right here.